Okay, so get this. Imagine you're at a concert and a full-blown riot breaks out. Not just some mosh pit, but an actual brawl. And it's all because of the music being played. Sounds insane, right? Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. One of the wildest nights in music history.
I mean, seriously, think about that. You're in a fancy theater, everyone's dressed up, the orchestra tunes up, and then the music starts, and people around you start yelling and literally throwing punches. It sounds like something from a movie, but trust me, this actually happened.
The scene was pure chaos. We're in Paris, 1913, at the premiere of a ballet called The Rite of Spring. The audience, full of fancy, high society folks, just completely lost their minds. They were booing, shouting, throwing things at the dancers. They even had to call the police. And the cause of this whole meltdown, it wasn't a technical glitch or some onstage drama. It was the sound coming from the orchestra pit.
So you gotta ask, what was in this music? What kind of sounds could possibly make a sophisticated audience go from 0 to 100 and start a full-on brawl over a ballet?
See, here's the thing. Back then, people expected music to be, well, pretty. You know, nice, predictable, easy on the ears. But what they got that night was like a musical earthquake. These words, unusual rhythms, dissonant harmonies, are basically fancy terms for sounds that were aggressive, jarring, and totally alien to them.
So who was the mad genius behind all of this? Who dared to basically throw a musical grenade into a packed theater and just see what happened?
Well, here he is. Meet Igor Stravinsky. This is the guy who lit the fuse on that explosive night.
Now, Stravinsky wasn't just some random guy. He grew up in Russia, so music was in his blood. But his secret ingredient, the thing that made him different, was his love for this raw, powerful, kind of wild Russian folk music. That stuff was in his DNA. So when he got his big break composing for this super famous dance company in Paris, he brought all that intense energy with him.
And here's the kicker. He wasn't exactly going rogue. The dance company he worked for, the Ballet Russes, wanted him to be a rebel. Their whole brand was being new, shocking, and pushing the limits. So they basically gave Stravinsky a hall pass to break every musical rule in the book. And boy, did he.
Okay, so what rules are we actually talking about here? Let's get into the nitty-gritty of what made his music sound so completely revolutionary.
The best way to think about it is like this. Before Stravinsky, most classical music was like a smooth, flowing river. It was beautiful and predictable. Stravinsky came along and turned that river into a raging, unpredictable waterfall. He took rhythm, which was usually just keeping time in the background, and he made it the absolute star of the show, a powerful, driving, and kind of terrifying force.
Think about the music in a tense video game boss battle. The beat isn't steady and calm, right? No way. It's unpredictable, it speeds up, it stops, it hits you with a loud, sudden accent to keep you on edge. That's exactly what Stravinsky was doing with his orchestra. He was trying to throw you off balance. And then there's dissonance. You know when you're scrolling your phone and two different videos start playing sound at the same time? One's a pop song and one's a tutorial, and it just sounds messy and wrong? That clash is dissonance. For centuries, composers avoided that sound, but Stravinsky leaned right into it. He used those harsh clashes on purpose to create a raw, tense, and primal feeling.
And finally, how he used the instruments. Stravinsky treated the orchestra like his personal sound design studio. He made instruments do things they were never meant to do. He had a bassoon playing a note so high it sounded like it was screaming. He let the entire drum section just go wild. He turned a polite orchestra into this huge, thundering, unpredictable beast.
So really, you can think of it as his four-step recipe for a musical revolution. You take an old folk tune, power it up with those video game boss battle rhythms, throw in those clashing harmonies, and then just unleash the whole thing with a giant, super loud orchestra. The result? Total musical mayhem.
So the riot in the theater eventually died down. But the shock waves from that one night, they were just getting started. That chaotic premiere didn't bury the music, it actually made it legendary.
So what looked like a complete and utter failure at the time was actually the beginning of something huge. That night wasn't just about one wild piece of music. It was Stravinsky basically kicking down the door and showing the whole world a completely new way to think about what music could be.
And trust me, you've heard the Stravinsky effect a million times, even if you didn't know it. You know those complicated, driving rhythms in jazz? A lot of that comes from him. And that epic, heart-pounding music in a big action movie scene? That is pure Stravinsky.
He basically gave every musician and composer who came after him permission to get weird, to be bold, and to break all the rules.
And if you boil it all down, that's the real story here. It shows that one single piece of art, on one crazy night, can be so powerful that it completely shatters the old way of doing things and opens up a whole new world of sound for everyone.
Which leaves us with a pretty cool question to think about. Stravinsky broke the musical rules of his time. So what are the rules of our time? And who's going to be the next person to come along and smash them?